Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's morning briefing.
The West Bank was far from quiet overnight as IDF forces clashed with Palestinians across the West Bank and made several arrests. First, Israeli security forces arrested several Palestinians in the Tulkarm area suspected of aiding the Balkan terrorist. Ashraf Naalawa murdered 2 Israelis in a brutal shooting attack at the Balkan industrial zone 2 weeks ago and has been on the run ever since. But undercover forces who made these latest arrests believe their latest detentions to be a sign of significant development in the investigation. Then nearby, in the village of Tamun, a Palestinian man identified as Mohammed Bisharat was killed by IDF soldiers after Israeli troops responded to Palestinian attacks. The soldiers were assaulted with stones and fireworks by some 50 Palestinians in the pre-dawn hours, leading the IDF unit to fire tear gas and live rounds in defense. Bisharat was shot in the chest and succumbed to his wounds upon arrival at the hospital. But then later still, in the West Bank village of Khalkhul, the IDF arrested a Palestinian man for a shooting that later investigations revealed never happened. Soldiers initially reported hearing gunfire near their military post and in response searched the area, eventually arresting a Palestinian man they found standing nearby. It's unclear if the man has been released yet, however, in the time since the report was revealed to be false. Defense Minister Lieberman made a vast shift in his policy towards Gaza over the last few days, from Monday, where he stated that Israel's only option was war with Hamas, to last night, where Lieberman declared the resumption of sending Qatari-funded fuel into the Strip. In large part, the change in tone comes following reports that last week's rocket attack from Gaza, which hit an Israeli Beersheba home, was indeed an accident. As for the deal with Qatar, that was initially brokered by the United Nations and supported by the US. However, it only lasted for just 3 days as a result of actual intensified Palestinian violence. The suspension was 12 days ago, but the Defense Ministry is now stating that due to a decrease in violent events in Gaza, as well as Hamas's efforts to restrain the weekly border protests, they've decided to reopen the pedestrian crossings into Israel, as well as allow the fuel and aid shipments. Meanwhile, however, Prime Minister Netanyahu is still maintaining a more cautious stance, stating that Hamas has essentially taken control of over 2 million people who are all committed to the destruction of Israel and are not partners in diplomacy. He added that Israel will not allow them to proceed or carry out their plans, stating, quote, "The first thing I'm committed to is security. No rockets, no mortars, and no balloons," end quote. But with fuel shipments and crossings now returning to normal, only time will tell if the violence on the border will continue to decline as it has since the weekend, or if Israel must come up with a new strategy moving forward. Police investigators are now apparently completed with their investigations into Prime Minister Netanyahu. The report first broke on Chadashot television news last night and maintains that the police will present their findings to the state prosecutor's office within the next 6 months. An unnamed source with the state prosecutor's office told Chadashot News that everyone would be surprised by how quickly a police recommendation would be made, too. Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit would then be responsible for making a decision one way or another after receiving word from the police investigations team. The police's Lachav 433 anti-corruption unit has long been looking into the Prime Minister in connection to 3 major cases, dubbed cases 1000, 2000, and 4000, which all relate to various charges ranging from illegal quid pro quo agreements to outright graft and bribery. Police already publicly recommended indictments against Netanyahu in February over cases 1000 and 2000, but have since reopened the cases and have not updated their recommendations. Netanyahu has also been questioned a dozen times in relation to these investigations, but has continued to vociferously maintain his innocence. In addition to the aforementioned cases, though, Netanyahu has also been suspected of pushing for legislation that would protect elected officials like himself from indictment. The immunity law, as the amendment has become known, was initiated by Likud MK Miki Tzohar and would reverse the current law. Currently, to use immunity, a Knesset member would have to go through a vote in Parliament. The amendment would instead grant immunity automatically and require a Knesset vote to enable an indictment. But Netanyahu has already ordered Tzohar to delay the advancement of the bill, saying he's convinced there will be no indictment anyway because there's nothing to indict over. In a very surprising move, the Museum of the Bible in Washington is now removing 5 Dead Sea Scroll fragments from their display. The removals were announced Monday after the fragments were proven to be forgeries. The revelation goes back over a year and a half to the spring of 2017 when 5 of the Museum of the Bible's 16 Dead Sea Scroll fragments were sent to Professor Ira Rabin at Germany's Federal Institute for Materials Research and Testing. While the test, quote, concluded that the 5 fragments show characteristics inconsistent with ancient origin, end quote, and are therefore modern forgeries. And there is a clear motive for forgery too, given the growing number of predominantly evangelical Christian collectors willing to pay way more than 6 figures for a tiny piece of holy text. And the real Dead Sea Scrolls represent the oldest known manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible, dating back to between the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century of the Common Era. Chief Curatorial Officer for the museum, Jeffrey Kloha, is offering a more positive reaction to the forgery, though, releasing a press release that says that while he hoped for different test results, this is an opportunity to educate the public on the importance of authentication for rare biblical artifacts. In fact, these tests are the museum's commitment to transparency manifest. And until further results are announced, the museum has removed the 5 forged pieces, replacing them with 3 items that have a statement alongside them also explaining their questionable origins.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.